All right, here we go. Welcome to Week 13 of Beat the Odds. It's a big shopping weekend across America. And who better to turn to for bargain hunting than the guys who combined spent $18 on their outfits today. Teddy and Jack are shopping for football, not clothes. Don't worry. We're looking for deals. Beat the Odds starts right now.
From our Las Vegas studios, this is Beat the Odds, sponsored by Superbook at the Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino, and powered by SportsGrid.
Well, welcome inside our Las Vegas studio. I'm Dave Hall.
And I'm Mariah Janos, and it's no secret, you guys, that I am the pro shopper on this show. There are 3 keys to finding a good deal. Do your homework, search for those bargains, be the first in line, and literally shove anyone who gets in your way. We do not have time for the slow walkers here, okay?
She's kidding. We think.
No, I'm not.
Okay, you know it's a big deal when Jack is wearing a sports coat.
Yep.
When's the last time he did that? And here he is at a mall.
So it's the holiday season, the busiest shopping weekend of the entire year, and we are shopping for some winners. So Beat the Odds is taking it on the road to ground zero of shopping, Middle America, at the mall, ready to find you some winners against the spread. Stay with us. Beat the Odds is next.
I love how it just said mall. Also coming up on the show, Teddy will tell us which team you might want to return to the store. Plus, we'll have our player prop showdown and best bets.
And I'll be chatting with our guy, Brandon Marshall, about coaches, players that he would gift to certain franchises. And our friends from SportsGrid are here, too.
Hey Vegas, we're excited to beat the odds with you guys once again. Coming up, Joe Lisi and I will take a look at some surprising performances from the Minnesota wideouts. Jordan Addison stole the show. Justin Jefferson, 2 grabs for 27 yards. What does it mean moving forward? We'll let you know, so sit tight, and we'll join you guys just a bit. It's back to the crew out in Vegas.
Okay, with Jack at the mall, it's just me and Teddy at the desk this week. You got your shopping done, bud?
Yeah, $18.
$18? Nice. Worth every penny. All right, obviously we have shockers and stunners every week. That Dallas-Washington game was bat bleep crazy. So for some perspective on that, let's send it back to Jack.
Yeah, guys, so shockers and stunners, every single week we seem to get more and more of those painful losses for some of the players out there. And this week was no difference. The ones that jump off the page, obviously both of those big underdogs, double-digit dogs, covering, and not only covering, but Dallas going on the road and winning at Washington. And the total was a totally different story. I know Teddy's going to touch on that. But basically the parity in the league, there's nothing easy right now as far as victories go as we head into December, the last part of the season. But you're talking about basically teams that are all evenly matched with the exception of Detroit. Who's the best? There's a ton of parity, and finding that has been tough as these shockers and stunners continue to keep rearing their ugly head and causing some pain for all the players out there.
All right, thank you, Jack. And yeah, if you had the under on that Dallas game, you're like, oh, money, baby.
Yeah, the worst beats, the very worst beats, all tend to come on unders. They really do. And Dallas-Washington under 44.5, as tough as it gets. It's 10-9 in the fourth. It's 13-9 with 6 minutes left. Okay, Washington fumbles deep in their own territory, and you get a cheap TD there. And then Washington marches down the field, and you get a cheap TD there. You still have a TD to spare. Well, then Dallas fumbles a kickoff and then runs it back for a touchdown. And then the next thing you know, you still have a half point to spare. No, blown coverage with 20 seconds left. And TD down the other way. The missed extra point, and then the onside kick return for a TD. If you had a 13-point teaser, you didn't cash that under.
Oh.
Brutal beat in that one from a game that, again, 13-9 with under 6 to play. Minnesota, they had an 11-point lead with less than a minute to play and didn't end up covering the point spread. That's no fun when that happens. A recovered onside kick. They did get a push in overtime, but still no fun for Minnesota backers. And, of course, Miami, New England under 45.5. Well, the last touchdown, the touchdown that set it over the total, came on a fumble return. Oh, those are ugly. And, of course, we saw a couple teams win no cover. KC against Carolina, as Jack referenced. Minnesota against Chicago. You got to push at least with that one.
Got about 30 seconds, Teddy, for some shockers. Obviously, with those stunners, there's going to be some shockers.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, Dallas winning outright as double-digit dogs at Washington. Tennessee Throws a pick six, no problem. Wild win at Houston in straight-up fashion. Certainly a shocker. Seattle's defense dominated Arizona. No red zone trips for Arizona in that ballgame, and only 6 points. Yeah, a couple of dogs, handful of dogs winning straight up.
Yeah, coming off a bye, Arizona offense a no-show. All right, thank you, Ted. Despite the holiday, people are still finding time to slip on over to the casinos. Mariah is at the Superbook Westgate Las Vegas with more.
Thanks, Dave. I'm here with EVP of Superbook Operations, Jay Kornegate. Jay, it's Thanksgiving weekend. The schedule is jam-packed. You know, we had games on Thursday and on Friday and, of course, Sunday and Monday. What is business like here? Because everyone has this extra time on their hands. Are they spending it at the betting windows?
Well, so far the holidays have been exactly that. We had an early rush on Thanksgiving morning, then it subsided as we got around dinner time in the evening. But what we expect and what we've seen in years past is that it really lightens up between Thanksgiving and Christmas. As soon as we get past Christmas, it really picks up.
And heading into the weekend, any early action that you're seeing?
Yeah, going into Week 13, we had a couple of underdogs that were played. We had Tennessee that's visiting Washington. Tennessee was +6. Now they're all 5.5. We also had Carolina hosting Tampa Bay, and they were getting 6, and those all went down to 6 or 5.5s as well.
And looking at the lines that you guys do have, the narrative all season has been San Francisco. They're banged up, but on paper, they are a great team. They'll be there in the end. But looking at the line right now against Buffalo, Buffalo is a touchdown favorite. Are books kind of following that regression and pulling back a little bit?
Well, I was one of those people, like you said, that was giving San Francisco a break because of all the injuries. We knew that, what we saw on paper and what their pedigree states, that they're a championship team, but they're just full of injuries. They've had a lot of inconsistent play, especially at the quarterback position. It's probably time for us to let go of San Francisco and focus on the true contenders.
All right, Jay, thank you so much. Dave, we'll send it back to you in studio.
Thank you, guys. So let me just warn you now, you will not be able to unsee Jack's next segment, both good and bad. Plus, Teddy will break down the wildest division in football right now.
Before we head to break on Sunday night, Philly running back Saquon Barkley became the second player ever to eclipse 300 yards from scrimmage in a primetime game. Who was the first? The answer after the break.
Beat the Odds is sponsored by Superbook Westgate Las Vegas and powered by Sports Grid.
Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you on Sunday night, Philly running back Saquon Barkley became the second player ever to eclipse 300 yards from scrimmage in a primetime game. Who was the first? St. Louis legend Flipper Anderson. He went for 300-plus scrimmage yards back in 1989 during a game against New Orleans. I have no idea who that is. All right, it's time to welcome in our champ, Brandon Marshall, whom we are all extremely thankful for this holiday season. All right, since everyone is running around this weekend getting their holiday shopping going, we're going to play a little gift-giving game, if you will. I'm going to throw out a name. It has to be sort of a free agent at this point of a player or a coach, and you're going to gift them to a team. So first up, I don't know how much of a gift he is, but he's all we got at this point. Yeah. Daniel Jones, where are you gifting him?
Daniel Jones either needs to go to Minnesota or Los Angeles. Okay. Because if you look at the Sean McVay tree, all right, Kevin O'Connell, head coach of Minnesota, he revived Sam Darnold's career. All right, Liam Cohen, who is the offensive coordinator in Tampa, all right, he was with Sean McVay in Los Angeles as well. So he helped revive Baker Mayfield's career. So he needs to go somewhere within that Sean McVay tree because they're reviving quarterbacks out here. Okay, they're helping their career, they're extending their careers, they're making them. They're allowing them to play better. So whatever coaches out there from the Sean McVay tree, I think that's where you should go.
I didn't expect those answers, but I like them. All right, next up, this guy, he is in Cleveland serving as an advisor at this point. Mike Vrabel should never have been let go to begin with.
Never.
But where should he go? I know there's a lot of teams that could use a guy like him.
Mike Vrabel was a really good coach, really good player, but really good coach. I think he would be best served in New York. And with that defense, if Aaron Rodgers, they bring him back or not, I'm not really sure. But I think he'd be great for New York. I think that he could, turn that franchise around, help revive him a little bit. So I can see Mike Vrabel in New York.
I like that. And sticking with former New England ties, the newest media darling on the scene, Bill Belichick.
Okay.
Where's he going?
I would love to see Bill Belichick in Dallas.
Okay.
I think that with that talented roster, they need a coach that's going to just bring a different vibe, a different culture to Dallas. Because right now, when they play sorry teams, they'll win. But when they play good teams, they fold. So they need a different culture. Now, I'm not sure if Jerry Jones will relinquish his GM matters because, Bill Belichick likes to have control of the personnel, and so does Jerry Jones. So will they mesh? I'm not sure. They may bump heads, but I think he'd be good in Dallas.
I think they both struggle when it comes to being a GM. So, but thank you so much, Brandon. I like all of those picks. All right, Jack is hanging out at the mall still, looking for deals. So let's see what he found, Jack.
So I thought it'd be a good idea this segment. We've been really good at finding those winners going over the next couple weeks. Last week we talked about the double-digit favorites and how they had done so well, and then that kind of flipped, and I had said this probably going to revert, and we're going to have some of these dogs covering. This week we're looking for some of those. We're shopping, and so we're looking for some diamonds in the rough, some of those gifts that we'll keep giving as we go through December versus some of those gifts that really are bad that you may buy into the hype this time of year. Let's start with the bad. At one point they made those shaky things or the thigh things that you were trying to tighten everything up. Where are those? Nobody owns those now. Those are basically, we have teams like that early in the year, everybody was thinking this is going to be a great spot. These are going to be good teams. Let's look at Washington. Washington, the reality of this team is, since the Hail Mary that they had against Chicago, they have one win. They basically beat the G-Men. That's it. This is not a team heading in the right direction. Their defense has regressed. They're losing games now that they're playing better opponents, and this is a team that's lost. They've got a tough schedule the rest of the way out. They've got teams like New Orleans, Philly, Atlanta, who's sneaky good right now. Washington, I think, is going to continue to regress after a really bad stretch. Could have won one of their last four had not been for a Hail Mary. On the flip side of that, let's look at Tennessee. This Tennessee team, Teddy talked about them last week, an 8.5 point underdog. They end up winning straight up. Will Levis had 278 yards passing against Houston. This is a team offensively kind of finding some identity, and their schedule is favorable for a good run as we head into the month of December. Jacksonville twice and Cincinnati. And this is not Cincinnati from September, October. This is a Cincinnati team that is probably playing for very little to nothing. Look for Tennessee to make some noise and be that good gift that you've got. Remember the blanket thing with the hole in the head? That's a good gift. We're looking for good things this time of year. Tennessee might continue that as we head into the month of December.
Let's talk about San Francisco and the wild NFC West. Of course, Kyle Shanahan left a giant lump of coal in bookmakers' stockings last week. San Fran was a 3-point dog at the open. They were a 7-point dog at the close, and they got blown out in Green Bay. Penalties, turnovers, it wasn't even Brock Purdy or Trent Williams or Nick Bosa being out, but the injuries and the lack of execution for San Fran has really stood out. And this is a team in the last 5 years, they've been to the NFC Championship game 4 times, been to the big game twice, they have 8 playoff wins. This year, the expectations still high, the results not so much. They're 5-6, back-to-back weeks where they're underdogs. They hadn't been underdogs in any game since 2022. Division's wild right now. Arizona didn't score a touchdown last week. LA got blown out at home by Philly. Seattle showing signs, 2-0 since the bye week. Right now, 1 game separates first place and last place in the NFC West. It is a wild division.
It's like Jack. We never know if we're going to get the good Jack or the bad Jack. It's every weekend is crazy. We just don't know.
Sharp money's always on the bad Jack.
Yeah, for sure. All right, thank you, Teddy. As always, we saw guys have great weeks, and then what the heck was that week's? Here is Sports Grid with more.
Kevin Walsh and Joe Lisi here, taking a look at some of the Sunday standouts, and we had an interesting one in the AFC South where Tennessee was trying to pull off an upset, and man, they did. And you could pretty much argue pretty easily that Will Levis outplayed C.J. Stroud on the road as well. Throws 2 touchdowns, 278 yards. 11.6 yards per attempt in this game, Joe. What a performance from Will Levis.
He looked very confident in terms of that matchup, really knew where he wanted to go with the football, bounced back as well from a critical interception in the second half and led his team in a position to strike the upset 32-27, really starting to come into his own and might have a better performance this coming weekend against a Washington team that has dropped back-to-back games against NFC East opponents in Philadelphia and Dallas, so we'll see how it plays out.
It's a tricky one, though, because if you are Tennessee, there's probably some degree of, oh, take it easy, need a good draft pick here. But performances like this could give Tennessee a little bit extra to think on. I think they're still heavily favored to probably select quarterback in the opening round, but man, Levis's game prior threw for 295. He's thrown 5 touchdowns to 2 picks in his last 3. We've seen something similar in Carolina with Bryce Young, where some of these young quarterbacks are trying to hold off their franchises from drafting someone new.
Time to develop, right? Understand, sit back, watch some game film, and just really progress. And the game slows down when they have that type of opportunity. So Will Levis starting to come into his own, and maybe Tennessee does have their franchise quarterback.
You mentioned time to develop. We're seeing it in Minnesota. Year 2 standout, Jordan Addison, all of a sudden shining bright. I mean, if we're talking a Minnesota wideout, it's usually Justin Jefferson, but it's Addison, the star in this game. 162 yards, a touchdown, 8 grabs. He was excellent in the win.
He was 30-27. They pull it out in overtime. He's another added option for Sam Darnold and that Minnesota offense. Jefferson held to 2 receptions for only 27 yards. You get that type of performance out of Addison. Minnesota can be a playoff contender.
And they're going to be in that race if they can win with getting games like that out of Justin Jefferson. Perhaps a deep postseason run could be on the table. All stuff we will be keeping our eyes on throughout this season.
You're watching Beat the Odds, sponsored by Superbook at the Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino, and powered by Sports Grid.
Welcome back to Las Vegas, home of Beat the Odds. Scan that QR code. It's our website, beattheoddstv.com. Now let's head back to Sports Grid.
Kevin Walsh and Joe Lisi here, taking a look at some of the underwhelming performances this past weekend. And Joe, I think for Arizona going up against Seattle on the road, it was never going to be easy, but 6 points, pretty inexcusable. Kyler does not throw a passing touchdown in the game, does throw an interception, only 9 yards of rushing as well. I know they're having a nice season in the desert, but Kyler has still been up and down, I feel.
A little inconsistent, right? That pass rush from Seattle got to Arizona last week, and I expect a better effort this coming weekend with Minnesota. Minnesota riding a 4-game win streak. They did battle Chicago this past weekend, but again, gave up 330 passing yards and multiple touchdowns to Caleb Williams. I expect Kyler Murray to bounce back in a big way this weekend.
You mentioned they're playing Minnesota. Should just quickly mention the potential for a bounce back from Justin Jefferson. 2 catches for 27 yards in an overtime game against Chicago. They get the win. They're 9-2. To some degree, I'm sure that's what he cares about, but also not really. Someone who believes he's the best offensive player in football will be looking to bounce back against Arizona.
Yeah, a couple games now. Justin Jefferson held under 100 yards. Happened a couple of weeks ago. 6 receptions, 81 yards. They get the road win over Tennessee and held to 2 receptions for 27. Did have a big reception to put Minnesota in key position to pull that ball game out, kick the game-winning field goal. So I expect Justin Jefferson to bounce back with multiple targets and multiple receptions this week against Arizona.
I'll tell you, Joe, I think maybe the most concerning performance we saw this past weekend, I think you could argue, was Joe Mixon. Houston, they lose. It is what it is. The second time in his last 3 games, he was held under 2 yards per carry. Mixon's supposed to be a part of this crop of RBs that change teams. Saquon, Henry, Jacobs. Houston cannot get games like this out of Joe Mixon and continue to win.
Absolutely not, especially against a mediocre Tennessee defense last week. They're playing Jacksonville this week. I expect more from that performance that he had a couple of weeks ago against Dallas. 131 yards and 3 touchdowns. Look for Joe Mixon to bounce back this weekend against Jacksonville.
Only the second game he doesn't find the end zone. Wouldn't bank on that continuing as well in that matchup. Certainly stuff we will all be keeping our eye on.
All right, here we go. Teddy against Jack, our player prop showdown. Today, the boys debating Aaron Rodgers over under 1.5 TD passes. Jack, get us started.
All right, guys, so Aaron Rodgers over 1.5 touchdowns this week. If this was 5 years ago, this would be the easiest bet on the entire board. It's not 5 years ago. Yes, they've struggled offensively, but coming off of a bye and playing a Seattle team, they gave up a bunch of points, 31 to Buffalo. They've been playing some mediocre to bad offenses. I'm not saying that New York has their offensive woes figured out, but I do think off the bye there'll be a little more imagination, get Aaron Rodgers back on track. Let's go over 1.5 touchdowns this week with Aaron Rodgers in the game against Seattle.
No. We're going Aaron Rodgers under 1.5 touchdowns. This New York offense isn't getting fixed. What are they? Number 27 in scoring. They're averaging 19 points a game. They're not scoring touchdowns. And then you're facing a Seattle defense that, guess what? Strong the last 3 games. It's going to be a competitive game, which means no pass only, under Rodgers TDs.
All right, when it comes to best bets, you guys have been hot lately. Let's see if we can keep it going, see who they like. Both picks might actually surprise you. That's next. Welcome back to Beat the Odds. So we spent the entire show shopping for deals. We've saved the best 2 for last.
Yes, it's best bets time. And if Jack can't find a good deal at that mall, there's really no hope. Fingers crossed. Jack, what do you got for us?
So best bet time, guys. From the mall, we found some value. We've been rolling with this. We're going to get it in this week. Let's look at Atlanta. They're playing the Bolts from L.A. Bolts having to go on the road, short week. Atlanta's sneaky good offensively. This team's a top 10 in the league offensively, averaging 23 points a game. I don't think this is a good matchup for L.A. I think that Harbaugh coming off that big game last week, this is a flat spot for them. Let's take Atlanta plus the points against L.A.
I'm going to go with Pittsburgh plus points against Cincinnati. And this one's real simple for me, all right? Cincy's no home field edge. They're 1-4 straight up this year. They went 3-5 straight up last year. Pittsburgh's better on the highway, 4-2 this year, 5-3 last year. Then Cincy's been at home. We've got Pittsburgh off a loss. We've got Pittsburgh as a dog. They're 4-0 with dogs this year. Cincy's not beating good teams. Take the points.
All right. Take the points and go shopping.
Enjoy your stretchy pants.
Yeah.
Bye.